If statements are an incredibly powerful function in Excel as they help you to automate decisions and simplify your data. But lots of people are scared of this function. Well, in this video, I'm going to help you get over that fear and master if statements. Let's take a look. So let's just see how the if function works. So I have a traffic light here, and what I want to do is I want to write an if function that will say stop if the red light shows on the traffic lights. So let's just enter in the formula. So if I equals if, then hit tab. First part of our if statement is effectively our logical test. So for this one, what we're going to do is we're going to say if cell B4 is equal to red. What we want to do though is we want to put red in quotation marks because it's a text. So if that logical test is correct, what is the value if true? So if the red light shows, we want to say stop. Again, because it's text, I'll put that in quotation marks. But if there's any other results, we want to just say go. So we'll just enter in go in our quotation marks again, close our parentheses and hit return. So then when we change the traffic lights, we can say we go on amber and then we go on green as well. Now I've just used the equals operator there, but you can also use any of these ones here in your if statements. So you can use not equal to, greater than, less than, and so on. So what we're going to do is we're just going to go through one example of those using some numbers. So on this particular grid, what I want to do is I want to say if our actual sales are beating our budget, I want to put in the word good. So again, let's enter in our if statement. Our first logical test is if the actual sales are greater than our budgeted sales. Then what we want to say, if true, we want to say good. Again, putting that in our quotation marks. And if it's not true, we just want that blank. So we'll just put in a double quotation marks, close our parentheses and hit return. So we can see in this particular customer A, we've beaten our budget. And if I drag that down, that seems to be working fine. Okay, so let's go back to our traffic light scenario here. Now, at the moment, when I select either amber or green, effectively the function tells me to go. But I want to change that so that if I select either amber or red, it effectively tells me to stop. So we can do that by using an OR function. Now the tip to use is effectively to write your OR function and then to do your if function around it. So let me just delete that and then go equals OR, tab that. And then our first logical sequence is if B4 is equal to red or B4 equals amber, close my parentheses and hit return. So that will just give us a false because at the moment the traffic light is green. But if I change that to amber, then it becomes true. And if I change that to red, that becomes true as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to wrap my if formula around that. This is my first logical test, is the OR function, and the value if that one is true is to stop, and then if it's false is to go. Close my parentheses and hit return, and let's just make sure that that works. If I go to amber, that says to stop, and then if I go to green, that says to go. So that seems to be working quite well. So our AND formula is very similar to our OR formula. So let's just have an example of the AND formula nested within an if statement. So in here, we want to say if we beat our budget and our product rating stars are above 3, then we just want to state great. So let's start with our AND function equals AND. Our first logical statement is if our actual sales are greater than our budgeted sales. And our second logical statement is if the product rating stars is greater than or equal to 3, close that parentheses and hit return. So we can see for this first line, we have both beat the sales and our product rating is 3. So we said 3 or above. What I'm going to do now is just wrap an if statement just around that. So if, and the first logical test is the AND function, which we know is returns a true. So the value of true is great. And then if it's false, we just want to leave that as blank. So double quotation marks, close your parentheses and hit return, and we can see that returns great. And if we drag that down, we've got all of our items that are above 3 stars and where the actual sales are beating the budget. Now if we want to build in multiple if statements, so in this example here, what I want to do is I want to categorize each of my customers into either a small, a medium or large, depending on their actual sales. So what we need to do in this example is to nest an if, so effectively put an if statement within an if statement. So let's go through an example. So equals if tab. My first logical statement is if my sales, my actual sales in cell D32 are greater than or equal to my large customer amount, so it's over £8,000, comment to that and say large customer. My value if false though, I'm going to put in another if statement in there, and this time we're going to say if our actual sales is greater than or equal to our medium customer spend, which is 1500, then choose our medium customer, and the value of that if false is just to choose the small customer. We can close our 2 parentheses there, but what I've got to do as well is I've just got to anchor by pressing F4 all of the values so that I can copy this formula down and just hit return. So you can see we've got sales of 9,000, that's over our 8,000, so that's categorizing that as a large customer. If I drag this formula down, you can see there we've got a small customer that's below 1500 and a medium customer which is between 1500 and 8,000. Now if you use multiple nested if statements within your formula, it can be quite difficult for other people to follow. So one other option is to use Excel's new IFS function, and that's available in Excel 2019 and above. So let's just go in and have a quick look and see how that works. So if I type in equals IFS and then tab, it's just effectively made up of a series of as many logical statements as you want, and you just need to specify the value if true. So in this particular example, what we're going to do is we're going to say if our actual sales is greater than or equal to our large customer spend, then we want to specify that it's a large customer. Our next argument then is if we say that our actual sales are greater than or equal to our mid customer spend, then we want to specify a mid customer. And then finally, if our actual sales are less than 1500, then we want to specify the small customer. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lock these values in here because we're going to drag that formula down and hit return, and then just drag that formula down. We can see that it's specified the correct answer there. Now if your if statements start to get incredibly complicated, the next best thing to do is really to use a lookup instead of an if statement. And the one I choose to use then is XLOOKUP. So it's an excellent function within Excel. I'll link a video up above so you can see how it works in more detail on a previous video I did. But let me just give you an example of how it would work in this scenario. So if we did XLOOKUP and we set our actual sales and we want to look that up in our spend column here, comma, and then we want to return our customer flag. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to lock those values by using F4, hit a comma. It has built-in error handling, but we don't want to use that for the moment. So we go on to our next argument and match mode. So we don't want an exact match. We want to do an exact match or the next smallest item. So if I put in -1, close my parentheses and hit return, you can see then it's specified that the 9,000 spend is our large customer. And if I pull the formula down, you can see that that categorizes all of our customers correctly, and the formula that we use is incredibly simpler and better to understand. I hope you found that video useful. If you did, here's another couple of videos that you might find useful and interesting.